Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode 101 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thank you for tuning in this afternoon. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is Monday, March 16th, 2020. Last week was the big episode 100 celebration, and I want to thank Beth Gordon, Amanda McLeod, John Dora, Heath Brocker, and Don Biaquez for all being a part of the show and helping to make it a special occasion. It was definitely a fun night. Kicking off the next 100 episodes begins right now, and coming up in the next segment, I'll be joined by today's guest, Claudine Matthews. She'll be coming on the program to discuss the work she does as a clinical dietitian, specifically focusing in the area of helping those with sickle cell disease. Claudine is also focused on her vision to help empower others by embracing their inner leadership qualities, and we'll be touching on that aspect of her mission as well when she speaks about her book, Overcoming Disempowerment. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, and it'll be coming up shortly, so please do stay tuned. And now to confront the rather large, pink, polka-dotted elephant in the room. Obviously, there's no way of getting around or escaping the fact that we are living in a global pandemic at the moment. It has begun to influence each of our lives in a myriad number of ways, whether it's nationwide lockdowns throughout Italy, Spain, and other European countries, or the turmoil still being felt throughout China, especially at the epicenter in Wuhan, or the virus infecting certain world leaders and their families, or the fear, hysteria, psychological discomfort, and overall uncertainty experienced by individuals during these trying times here in the USA and elsewhere as shelves are emptied of essentials as soon as they're stocked lately, or the economic ramifications of global markets teetering toward meltdown as airlines, cruises, restaurants, and other businesses are all slammed hard. We've entered a trying time in modern history, and it can either bring out the best of our shared humanity or drive us to become nihilistic and cynical. There is a choice to be made. I, for one, refuse to be dragged down into a low level of consciousness. I have faith that we will come out stronger on the other side of this pandemic in a few months after the coronavirus has run its course. But that doesn't mean there won't be hardships and upheavals in our regular way of life in the meantime. But through it all, I'll do my best to remain in a state of peace, love, and compassion. And on that note, I wanted to share this piece I wrote several years ago that seems apropos for the moment. It's titled, Happy Holy Days. Be thankful for your family, for your friends, for your tribe, for your community, for every nightfall and every sunrise, for every heavy cloud and every clear sky. Be thankful for the young innocence, for the aged wisdom, for the pure air we breathe, for the clean water of the Tao River, for the flow of the process through which life ebbs. Be thankful for the wave pulled in by the tide, for the sand carried out to sea, for the honey stored in the hive by bees. Be thankful for the nectar of the flower, for the pillow upon which you rest your head and sleep, for the clothes that offer warmth in the winter, for the naked sweat of summer swelter. Be thankful for the music of the spheres, which raises the vibration of your spirit, for the consciousness with which your flesh is ensouled, for the lessons of life that you were given to learn, for the opportunities, for the challenges. Be thankful for the trials, tests, and tribulations through which the possibility for progression, evolution, development, maturity, and growth are presented. Be thankful for the lofty heights, for the lowly abyss, for the perfect balance of the middle path. Be thankful for those who have been saved from suffering and sorrow by finding the key to a song of serenity. Be thankful unto the Lord. Hallelujah. Be thankful for the vegetables and fruits that resonate with life energy and assimilate into your electrically charged being. Be thankful for the teachers who are humble in the dissertation of their heartfelt lectures, for the gravity which holds the material world in form and place, for the one-pointedness of space and time, in which the infinite and eternal nature of the spiritual dimension of reality is manifested and made known. Be thankful for the memories of the past, for the future pretense, for the present moment in which the nowness of the entirety of life is centered in the circle of cyclical experience. Be thankful for the healing power of forgiveness, for the magic of unconditional love, for the miracle of awakened consciousness, for the jeweled web of interconnected synchronicity, for the angles which coincide at a divine degree, for the angels, for the animals, for the alchemical procedure through which the two are made one. Be thankful when departing from those you care for, and be not sad. Be thankful when reuniting with those you hold dear. Rejoice and be glad. Be thankful for your eyes and the sights that are seen, for your ears and the sounds that are heard, for the vision behind your eyes and the humming frequency between your ears which reveal the higher senses of truth. Be thankful for the chirping of the birds that calls you forth from slumber when the time to awaken has arrived, for the violin orchestra of the crickets that soothes you into sleep when the need to rest arises. Be thankful for the candle's light which guides you out from a cave of darkness, for the moon whose face reflects the glowing prophecy of a new dawn, for the stars and the intensity with which they shine. Be thankful for the passion and inspiration through which imagination is brought to life by a creative design. Be thankful unto the Lord. Hallelujah. Be thankful for the rhythmic beat to which vibrations dance in harmonic geometric patterns, for the 3 points of the triangle, body, spirit, and mind. Be thankful for the curved shape of the cylinder, which acts as an attracting funnel to spiral, cascading energy toward cohesion at a vortex, for the place of nexus where all forces are compressed in a unified singularity of oneness, for the formula by which all equations and theories are synthesized at a resonance of collective connectivity. Be thankful for the nest in which all variables rest in embedded peace. Be thankful for the house which bars none. Be thankful for the castle whose doors are ever open. Be thankful for the kingdom in which no hierarchy reigns, but where every soul exists as a shard from the same holographic whole. Be thankful for the gatekeeper whose heart is large, for the farmer whose fields are full, for the carpenter whose hammer is steady, for the phoenix who, on the rise, is ever ready, for the moneylender whose generosity is rich, for the prophet who is wealthy with wisdom, for the margin by which a profiteering spirit is lifted. Be thankful for the shamanic oracle whose liquid crystal visions foretell the coming of a golden age of awakening, for the white wall upon which all color has come together in confluence to create an environment of unlimited, endless, and infinite possibilities. Be thankful for the eternal truth that is etched upon the canvas of your heart by an awesome blessing through a brushstroke of grace. Be thankful unto the Lord. Hallelujah. Be thankful for the Psalms of Selah, for the humility of surrender through which the empowerment of courage is received, for the intuition of God's guidance that is generated through intention within your guts, for the tranquility of silence in which the still, small voice within can find calmness and peace to sound out in speech, for the symphonic opera whispered into existence through the first breath of the maestro, for the festival where energy concentrates its gathering force, for the natural Tao order of life's winding course, for the heavens and the rain from which there pours. Be thankful unto the Lord. Amen. All right, that'll wrap things up here at the top. It was a little bit longer of an opening than usual, so thank you for bearing with me. Now let's go to a music break and then come back on the other side with today's guest, Claudine Matthews. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. I do encourage listeners to please take a moment and subscribe to the 17 Numa Radio channel. It's easy to do and it's free. Just click the follow button found on the page where this episode is streaming, and that'll get you signed up. And a reminder to everyone that all past episodes of the show can be accessed or downloaded for later listening from the archive here on the channel or from the Songs of Selah page at 17numa.com. I want to thank everyone who spreads the word about this program and shares episode links. Your support is greatly appreciated. And anyone who's interested in appearing as a guest on a future episode can feel free to contact me via email at 17numa@gmail.com or reach out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and I'd be happy to get you set up for an episode later this year. Today's guest, Claudine Matthews, is an innovative, forward-thinking, courageous leader who is passionate about personal leadership behavior empowerment. Her vision and mission is to inspire others, especially women, to embrace the leader within and to empower the disempowered to step up and out to fulfill their full potential. Her passion is to make leadership available to all people at all levels of society by helping them to overcome the obstacles of their past and turn them into opportunities for achievement. Claudine qualified as a dietitian in 1992 from the University of the Western Cape. She became a UK registered dietitian in 2002 after moving to London in 2000. She has worked for the National Health Service for over 10 years as a clinical dietitian. In 2012, she accepted a new role as social liaison officer in sickle cell service in Hackney, which has been instrumental in her academic and research interest and development. In 2014, she was awarded a master's degree in healthcare education and clinical leadership from Kingston University, and it is there that she developed her passion for personal leadership empowerment. In 2016, she enrolled into a professional doctorate degree from Anglia Ruskin University, focused on developing nutrition service provision in sickle cell disease. Thank you so much for joining the program today, Claudine. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm really excited. Had some technical difficulties, but I'm here. I hope you can hear me, and I hope the listeners can hear me. Really excited, and thank you so much. It's interesting that we haven't met before, but, we're connecting via this program, and I'm really excited and really thankful. And just to give a great shout-out to your poem that you read in the beginning, how wonderful and amazing, to celebrate all the goodness of this world, just to encourage people and to inspire hope. So thank you so much for having me on the program, and I look forward to, just having fun and, hopefully inspiring people as well.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game here today, and sorry about the technical difficulties, but you are coming through clearly.
Good.
Volume,
Good.
everything working well, and
Excellent.
got a lot to talk about here today. You're actually a very good guest, I think, to have on at this moment in time with your expertise in the fields of dietitian and health, and I'm sure you've got a lot of good advice that you can give people psychologically as well to sort of stay in a positive mindset through the hardships that we're dealing with. And I guess maybe to start things off, if you could give a little bit more background about your time there in South Africa, where I know you grew up during the apartheid, and maybe what that experience was like for you and how that shaped your worldview and your life.
I actually start my book with an excerpt of, the time growing up under the apartheid regime, and if it's okay with you, I'll just read the opening sort of paragraph from the book, which gives an overview of my experience and my perception of the time of growing up under the apartheid regime. Would that be okay with you?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I'll just read. So, and it's titled A False Identity. The story unfolds with a young girl growing up on the Cape Flats in Cape Town, South Africa during the apartheid era. That young girl was me. I remember not being able to go to school during the riots of 1976 and being so close to the rioting action. The riot army tanks, army personnel, dressed and ready for combat, with heavy artillery, guns, and tear gas canisters. I remember vividly my eyes stinging from the tear gas that was used to disperse the rioting crowds. I was 5 years old. I remember the fear and anxiety of being cooped up indoors, petrified of when the army might storm inside the house and fire gunshots. This was the reality I lived in, living with racial segregation under the Group Areas Act, different races forced to live separately. I remember years later being frowned upon when my husband and I bought a flat in what was previously a whites-only area. Living under the apartheid regime was the norm for me, having been born into the system which at its core was birthed to dehumanize, devalue, undermine, and disempower its subjects. This was my way of life, everyone living separate lives, occasionally meeting a person outside of your race in the supermarket or out shopping. Unbeknown to me, the system was brainwashing me to take on a new identity that I was different. I wasn't good enough to go where I wanted or live where I wanted or indeed have and be friends with whom I wanted to. The system inculcated an identity within me, brewing an internal philosophy that I wasn't good enough. I was a failure. I didn't matter. I didn't have a voice. I can't think like others. This false, controlling and manipulating internal philosophy conjuring up a distorted self-image, poor self-esteem, and poor perception of self and belief of what I was capable of doing and achieving. And so instead, I chose to hide in the shadows. I chose the safety of obscurity where I did not run the risk of being called out, a place where I blended in. I could be overlooked and be comfortable doing the things I could do and not be open to ridicule for getting things wrong, speaking out of turn. I was safe to be me, the me that society had dictated me to believe about myself. I was crippled by fear and anxiety, trapped and controlled by my thoughts, believing this is normal, this is what society and the apartheid system says is socially acceptable. I remember being so excited to get my first job as a dietitian in 1995. It did mean moving to the West Coast, which was a 3-hour drive outside of Cape Town. But this is where I experienced firsthand the effects of apartheid. It was during this time that I was refused entry to a local disco, the excuse being this is a private party. I remember a colleague of mine telling me how her mother asked her if it was safe for her to go with me to have a meal in a local restaurant. I remember inviting the same colleague for coffee and the waitress refusing to give me any eye contact, even though I was paying the bill. I remember another occasion where I was lodging with a white family and a friend of theirs asking if I was using the same bathroom facilities as they were. I remember colleagues speaking to me about my race as if I wasn't part of the same group of people. As you can see, it wasn't hard for this to shape my thoughts, beliefs, and my actions. So this is a clip, this is the first few paragraphs from my book, and just summarizes what my experiences were. And as you can see, from a tender age of about 5 years old, and so what the apartheid regime and the doctrine sort of left me with was feeling that I wasn't good enough, and because of the separateness, because we weren't allowed to mix with other races. And unfortunately, that stayed with me for a very long time, where I achieved but didn't achieve to potential, so underachieved and didn't put myself forward for anything, I would allow other people to go ahead. And so literally just sort of sell myself short, so to speak. And in the book as well, I share and extract about, so as a young girl, I was actually gifted in dance, in ballet dance, and started very late with dancing, but, was given the opportunity to dance a grade 5 sort of role in a show that was put on by the school. And I decided that this was, I wasn't good enough for this, and left ballet and never, ever went back, and so never, ever had another ballet lesson again. That was the impact that apartheid had on me, in me being able to see who I truly was, and hence the title of my first paragraph, False Identity. So I had a false identity of who Claudine was, the person that God called me to be. I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. And so I'm thankful that after, a good many years, I've been able to sort of come out of that and start seeing myself, through a new lens, and really getting to see myself, for the true gifts and talents and abilities that God has given me. So it wasn't a very good experience growing up, but I do believe that, in that negative experience, it shaped me, into the person that I am today. And certainly my worldview is very, very much influenced by sort of growing up in the apartheid regime. And so for me, what's really, really important is social justice and advocacy, being a voice for the voiceless, so standing up for the marginalized and being a voice for those who don't have a voice to speak, and also the empowerment, because apartheid for me was so disempowering. It literally robbed me of, being able to be and flourish and achieve and blossom and, just embrace everything that was given to me. And so empowerment has become really, really important to me. But empowering the disempowered, empowering those that, who like me may have gone through a disempowering experience. For me, it was apartheid. For someone else, it might be a diagnosis. For someone else, it might be a really bad experience that they've had growing up. But empowerment has become really important to me. And in the latter part, certainly, self-leadership, hence the passion I have developed for personal leadership empowerment, because it was being able to embrace the leader within that has helped me transition into the person that I am becoming and that person I have become. So, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight sort of in where I started and how the apartheid impacted my life, and the passion to really just, embrace and reach out to those people who find themselves today in a disempowered state for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be, apartheid. It doesn't have to be race-related. It can be anything else. So hopefully going forward, I can really speak into people's lives and share my experiences to bring them out of that, to empower them to really embrace the power that's within. Long story, but hopefully that gives you an insight.
Such tragic circumstances to have to describe, but you wrote and expressed them so wonderfully there. And
thank you.
Wondering, what are the main experiences that you went through that helped you get out of that state of disempowerment, dealing with those circumstances of the fear and feeling the self-worth being low? Were there any aha moments or epiphanies that you came across, or people in your life that have helped you flip that script, as it were, and take on the new identity?
Yeah, so that actually happened. So in my book, I speak about this, and I titled it my epiphany. So I came to the UK in 2000 with my husband, but in 2008, I had my aha moment. And actually, it came about where a very good friend of mine, Grace Owen, she invited me to a Women in Leadership conference. And at the time, I was baffled as to why she would have invited me to come to a Women in Leadership conference when I wasn't a leader. And but I went along, and it was actually at that conference where initially I felt like an imposter. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not a leader, and felt really small. And all those feelings of growing up in the apartheid regime, of feeling not good enough and not worthy, and all of that, all of those things flooded, up to the surface. But the conference was actually a celebration of a book that's entitled The 7 Deadly Sins of Women in Leadership. And actually, I suffered from the first deadly sin, which was a limiting self-perception. So as soon as I heard those words, limiting self-perception, I had my epiphany. I had my light bulb moment. And it was like literally the chains that had held me back, from growing up. And I was, how old was I? That was in 2008, so I was about 38, thereabouts. But it was at that time that literally I felt the shackles, I felt the chains of that disempowerment, of that fear and anxiety sort of leave me, because for the first time I diagnosed what was wrong, in a sense, because I knew there was something. I couldn't quite pinpoint because there wasn't anybody that I had spoken to. Growing up under the apartheid regime, you didn't speak about apartheid. It was something that you lived with, you experienced, but it wasn't spoken about. It was like that white elephant in the room kind of thing. So I knew there was something, and then as soon as I heard those words, limiting self-perception, it was like, I knew that was what I was suffering from, and, because I grew up believing that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't clever enough, I wasn't able to do more than what I was, doing, and, I could see that was the perception that I had of myself, that I had a limited perception of myself. I didn't have the words to articulate it at that point, but I knew, within my soul that was the problem. And, it was at this conference, celebrating women in leadership and, me not seeing myself in that way, that really shifted things for me, because it was really interesting that, in that, even feeling like, I don't belong there, that imposter syndrome that came through, following on from that epiphany of identifying the limiting self-perception, the next thing that I wanted to do was to actually do a master's. Now, I will say that growing up, so after I'd done my undergrad degree as a dietitian, I did get an opportunity in South Africa to actually do a master's, but decided not to because I wasn't clever enough. So as soon as I had my epiphany, the first thing that I wanted to do was that I wanted to do my master's, and not any master's. I actually wanted to do a master's in leadership. So it was really, really, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, how God brought me to this conference, to this thing that I didn't believe that I was. But following on from that epiphany and from that aha moment, drew me into leadership. And it was during this time of doing my master's in clinical leadership that I actually discovered this whole concept of personal empowerment. I'd never heard of that before, but it was in writing my 10,000-word reflection at the latter part of my master's, that this term actually, I became aware of this term of personal empowerment and leadership empowerment, and that was the start and the birthing, I think, of this passion that is sort of developed and is continuously growing, because it was in that time that I discovered that within me there were things that I had that I was able to do. And in recognizing that, because remember when you do, my undergrad degree was 20 years before I did my master's, and it was quite a lot of, it was a big jump, going from, not believing that you are a leader, not believing that you're good enough, not believing that you're clever enough, to then doing this thing. And then you're encountering all these clever people that you think are clever. They leaders, they're in leadership positions. You're not in a leadership position. So what I found myself was I took myself right to the back of the class when we had lectures, because I was still just coming to terms with this whole idea of seeing myself in a different way, of seeing myself in a limited way. And over time, thankfully, I was able to really start breaking down those perceptions, those limiting perceptions of how I saw myself, to the point that at the end of the master's, I loved learning. I was so scared of the learning process, but I loved learning. I loved leadership, and I loved the fact that I could see how my learning was helping my leadership development, and how it was shifting me from, not thinking that I was able, to seeing myself able, seeing myself empowered, seeing myself achieving on a level that I never thought I could. And so it was this journey through, this master's program, just really uncovering what was in me, the mindset of a leader, starting to see myself as that, starting to call myself a leader, because the problem with a lot of people, and certainly with me in those days, was that people could see that I had these qualities in me. I couldn't see it for myself. And it was only until I was able to call these things out for myself and able to articulate and verbalize it, I could hear myself say that I was this thing, that transition happened from disempowerment to empowerment. And actually, as part of my master's, I developed a personal empowerment framework, which is actually chronicling my journey of how I got from, the disempowered Claudine to the now empowered Claudine, and actually what I now encourage and teach others, the process and so forth. So my journey was sort of, I had to, in the beginning, get to know the true Claudine, the real me. So the first part of the personal empowerment framework is what I call personal culture, just really getting rid of this limiting self-perception, seeing myself in a limited way, and starting to see myself in a different way, in an empowered way. And that part of that was to recognize what were those things within me that were holding me back. And it was certainly how I saw myself, because in the beginning I saw myself as not able. I saw myself as not good enough, not clever enough, not able to think, etc., etc. And I had to address that. So that first part was, just uncovering who Claudine is, the real Claudine, the Claudine that God ordained and put on this earth. And that was the first sort of process for me to make that transition. And then I had to change my thinking. I had to reframe. I had to, change how I look at things. So in the past, with my limited mindset, I would look at a situation and think, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And I had to start changing the thinking and start thinking that actually, I don't know, but I can try. I don't know, but I can ask for help, or I don't know, but I can learn. And so I had to sort of reframe, the way that I would normally look at really difficult or challenging situations. And I had to learn to reflect as well and recognize my learning and recognize what I was doing well and recognize the gaps. Because before it was like, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, and I wouldn't even attempt, I wouldn't even put myself forward to doing things. But over time, I was able to reframe situations and circumstances and just change the perception, change the way that I see things, and that really, really helped me to shift. Then the third component of this personal empowerment framework for me was I had to believe that I could do these things, because, when you grow up with a limiting mindset where you don't believe that you can, you're not even in a position to put yourself forward to doing something because you believe that you lack the confidence, you lack the self-belief. And so I had to, start sort of really digging deep and, seeing what I can do and what gifts and abilities I do have, and use those, and then learn, the things that I needed to learn to go forward. And I think the fourth component was the big thing, was the potential. Is, for me, potential is something that we've not yet done. And if you don't do a thing, you will never get to do it. And so I, through the masters and through the learning of the masters, I had to step outside of my comfort zone. And that for me was the fourth component. As soon as I started doing that and taking, being courageous, taking courageous steps, going into uncharted territories, doing things that I never thought in the past that I could do, doing it now and doing it afraid was, that fourth sort of transitioning component. And that was sort of the four components that really helped me to transition from being disempowered from, for many, many years, because I did my master's when I was about 40. So for 40 years I lived, disempowered, believing that I could and believing that I was only able to do things to a certain level. And I'm thankful today, but that was sort of the steps that I took, and that I want to encourage people and that I teach people that I took to help me make that transition. So yes.
What a powerful story and an amazing journey that you've been through to reach where you are at this point. As you were going through that shift and sort of piercing through the false veil of what you thought you were to reach the state of what you truly are and can accomplish, when did you take that to the next level and decide that you wanted to pass that on to others and share that information and write your book, Overcoming Disempowerment?
Yeah. It's really interesting because the Masters, in the book I speak a lot about the Masters because the Masters was quite pivotal. One of the assignments for the Masters was that you had to write an academic paper that was at the level for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. And actually, when I read the prospectus for the Masters, that was the one thing that I feared the most. Because I've never written, sort of at this level, and I just like, how am I going to do it? I can't write. I don't have the ability to do that. But it was amazing that through the Masters, I discovered that I could write. I never knew that I could write, and so by the end of the Masters, I had to write this academic paper, and did that and passed and got a really good grade for it. And that was sort of, I think, the starting point of my understanding and awareness that I have an ability to write, because before then I had no idea that I could write. And it was soon after the Masters that I was introduced to sickle cell, and I worked as the liaison officer for sickle cell. And when I discovered that there wasn't any nutrition services for sickle cell patients, that I discovered that if I was going to impact, my profession and inform them with what I know and raise awareness of sickle cell, I would need to find a medium that I could reach out and connect with as many people as possible. And I wasn't on radio then. So the next best thing was, how can I do this? And I decided and thought, I'm going to write an article. And so I wrote the first article. I needed a bit of help, obviously, because writing academic and then writing articles is slightly different. But that's where I started. I wrote my first article that was published in our professional magazine, and that was 2014-15. But that was the turning point for me with, oh, right, I can actually write. And I can actually use this medium to impact and to make a difference. And so, as a consequence of writing that first article in 2014-15, I went on to write 10 other articles. And as a consequence of writing these articles, there was this desire within me to actually write a book. I think, after the Masters, probably around about the 2016 mark, because I had a coach at that point as well, and I felt during those coaching sessions that I needed to write a book, because for me the purpose of writing is to inform and is to educate and to share. And for me it was always about if whatever I learned, what helped me to go ahead and move ahead, I want other people to be able to get that same learning, and I want to share that with other people. And I discovered that through writing I was able to do that. So whatever happened to me that was positive, I would translate that into an article. And that's how the book came about. So I said in 2016 I had this desire. I felt like, I really wanted to write a book, but it was only in 2018 that, I actually put pen to paper and decided to write this book, Overcoming Disempowerment. And it's literally, that journey of what the personal empowerment framework I was describing earlier on, it was literally that journey, trying to talk through that journey and getting other people to be able to benefit from, how I've been able to benefit from the process. So in 2018, I sat down, and it took me 8 days to write the first draft of the book because, I had discovered that I could write, and when I also believe that when God puts something on your heart, when it's something is bigger than you, because my whole journey, the learning, the personal empowerment framework, all of that for me was divine, I believe. Was God inspired, and so by the time I was ready to write the book, I just felt it was God saying it's now the right time. So actually this book, I wrote a first attempt of the book, which took me 10 days, and my dear friend Grace gave me feedback on that book, and she said, Claudine, there's actually 2 books in that one book, so overcoming disempowerment is actually a consequence of that initial feedback that I got from the first attempt. So this book actually took me 8 days to write, and it's literally a culmination of my journey from my aha moment, so to speak, my epiphany in 2008 to the point that I was in 2018. But what was really interesting as well, Scott, was that I didn't know that I was writing this book for myself in the first instance, because at the end of 2018, I was actually diagnosed with cancer. And before I had the diagnosis, I had a moment where I was feeling extremely vulnerable and was crying, and I couldn't console myself. And I felt like the Holy Spirit was leading me to, or reminding me about this book that I wrote for other people, to help other people. And chapters 4 to 6 specifically was highlighted to me during that time. And when I recalled writing the chapters and recalled, the book, instantly I stopped crying, because, I was reminded, what's the point of writing a book to help others when you can't actually apply it to yourself? So it was amazing that, I wrote this book that was intended to help other people, but actually the book helped me in the first instance. And so there's great meaning and great purpose for me personally for the book, and I'm hoping that, other people who have read it and who will yet to read it will be able to find that in the book for themselves.
And absolutely encourage listeners to check out the link that's in the show description box for Overcoming Disempowerment. They can find that on Amazon and should pick up a copy, get some more insights into what you're talking about here today. And there's also a link in the show description box to an organization that you're co-director of, the Nutrifis Wellness. Can you talk a little bit about how that program launched and what you're doing there?
So thank you. So that's a very new project. My husband's actually a physiotherapist, and our passion is to empower people in psychologically, in terms of mental health, but also in terms of physical health, and obviously nutrition as well. And so it is basically a joint venture between my husband and myself to be able to provide solutions for body, mind, and spirit, because I do believe, we are a complete being. We are not just body, we are body, mind, and spirit. And so the aim of what we offer, the services that we offer through there, and certainly from Ashley's side, from the physio side, is that, the physical side, the exercise, the lifestyle changes, being active, etc., But also in terms of, so on the diet side, the healthy aspect, healthy eating, but the healthy living and the mindset, the personal empowerment aspect of it is around the healthy mind, healthy body. And so that was launched 2019, so last year. It's still very much in its infancy stage. Because I'm doing my doctorate as well, it's been really difficult to just manage that, just because of time-wise, etc. But through the venture, through Nutrisis Wellness, we are hoping to offer solutions, as the strapline goes, solutions for body, mind, and spirit. We are hoping to offer solutions, a holistic approach to health, to those that need it. And it's a combination of what we both do, and hopefully going forward, we're hoping to grow that to really sort of be able to impact people in a much greater way. But that is the venture, and that's what we're doing. And it's literally a culmination of who we are and what we do, and our desire to really help people in a holistic way.
Yeah, what a wonderful program that sounds to be, and I wish you all the best with it going forward. It's that mind, body, spirit.
Thank you.
Combination.
Yes.
It's definitely something that everyone can take into their lives and gain from. So I hope they'll go check that out as well in the show description box and find out more about the offers that you have there and find out more. And here, with about 8 minutes left in the show, we have a surprise caller, a mutual friend of ours that I wanted to invite on the program and say hello to you. And
thank you.
Dawn, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Dawn. Oh my goodness.
Hi. Surprise! I'm so happy to hear your voice. You've been brilliant. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Scott is amazing, because you know what, Don and I, this is the first time that we would actually be speaking.
It's weird.
This is so weird. This is so gross. Not gross. I mean, this is wonderful. Sorry, wonderful. But this is a wonderful surprise. Thank you, Scott.
It's exhilarating. It's a very weird feeling, but it's fantastic. Listen, I haven't got much time. I wanted to say thank you by giving you a half of a poem of mine in your honor, and it's about the time of you started out about pot or whatever. I can't say much about it now, time limit, but it's the You from the You magazine. You know how you know it?
Yes.
The You magazine,
I do.
So I'm going to give half of these poems. Anyway, here I go. You, Ode to a Childhood Magazine. Rain angrily spitting against my window. Tears of these times, sounds of social grime. Ignoring humanitarian heinous crime, words twisted, witnesses resisted. You, my childhood companion, my weekly global communion. It becomes my worldly window, shielding me from the imploding carnage below. What a welcome momentary historical freak show. A country burning, emotions simmering, stirring in the seismic hotpot of clashing cultures. My teenage years warped by a racial cord. Amidst the political cauldron, damaged children, you, molded by shared historical glue. My people ousted, left with brittle pride. Another tear gas canister, nowhere to hide. Burning, churning, apocalyptic murmuring, disbelief, authorities maiming, children wailing, Reagan steering a sustained superpower, Thatcher not relishing her finest hour, her subjects equally raging, revolting, Gorbachev of political lark, branded with a fiery mark, P.W. Botha spitting rhetoric, a miserably parliamentary mimic, voices echo, words burn, fallen fascist wall breaking in Berlin, global politics entombed by clashing critics, you constantly reporting political marketing, world wondering why all this racial suffering, British protesting against color division, only we understand the true mission of our country on a declining, doomed journey. That's it.
Oh,
that's only half the poem, but I thought I'd use that to connect with what you started with. So well done.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're actually talking.
Yeah. But I wasn't going to miss a chance. Listen, I wasn't going to miss a chance for this historical moment, so we will be in the archives together.
Wow, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Amazing.
And, yeah, I'm like wowed by your insight in your book, and I'll speak about that when we do speak for real again after this. You've done so well. You didn't have anything to worry about. And Scott, well done on an amazing guest.
Well, thank you, Don, for bringing this show together and introducing Claudine to the program. And always a pleasure to have you on as well, my friend. Excellent poem. She
behaved herself very well, and what an iconic moment for our generation, really. So super proud. Listen, I'm gonna go now, so you can have a couple of minutes to say goodbye to Scott and Claudine. Super proud of you, and when you're ready, you can go rest, and let me know what you thought about it all. Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, bye. We'll speak again,
bye.
Scott. All the best. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
All right, take care, Don. Well, that was a surprise call-in from our mutual friend, Don. Wanted to have him say hello since he pulled this all together here today.
Yes.
Glad
Thank
that y'all
you.
got a
That was amazing. Thank you.
And here at the end of the show, we've got a few minutes left. I wanted to know if you could just give listeners maybe some general insight onto how you would have them go about dealing with the world as it is today, and maybe just some insights on how they can stay in a state of empowerment through the diet, through positive thinking, and through that holistic approach that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think it's so. Thanks for that. I think it's so important in this day and in this time that we have a sense of who we are, because if we don't know who we are, then we can be influenced in a negative way by what's going on around us, and we don't have the stability that we need to be able to listen, hear, feel, but also be stable and stay in peace. You started the program so nicely about, being in peace and staying in a state of peace. And I think that comes with having a sense of who you are. So as I said, being able to listen and hear, but still knowing who you are and not being swayed by everything that's going on. So I will definitely encourage people to take some time out and get a sense of you, get a sense of what's important to you. And because in times like this, we can become so fixated on ourselves and what is going on. And I want to encourage people, get a sense of who you are, but, to help you actually be in a position to help others. So I want to encourage people to, yes, know who you are and, being kind to yourself, but also, extend that to the people around you. It's so easy that, when things are difficult around you, that you internalize everything, and you forget about the people around. We see now the shelves are empty. People have no regard for, the next person. And so I want to encourage people to, take a step outside of yourself and reach out and see what you can do, see what difference you can make, see what difference you can be to your community, to the people living on your streets, to your neighbors, and to the people living in your in the areas that you live in. And certainly in terms of sort of the health nutrition wise, it's important to eat and eat a good diet, a good mixture of foods. It's tricky at the moment now because where there isn't a lot out there because people are buying up, your choices become very limited. But be mindful of of what you're doing and what you're choosing to eat, particularly in the times now where we have to isolate because the governments have decided that it's safer for people to be at home. It's so easy when you're feeling vulnerable, when you're feeling weak, that you opt for the types of foods that might not be the best for high fat, processed foods. So I want to encourage you to be mindful of what you're choosing to eat. I know the focus might be on, keeping safe, etc., but it's still important for you to be mindful of what you're doing and what you're choosing to eat. And particularly, I guess, for families, there's young children or growing children. As older adults, we need to be aware that we're modeling and we're role models to the people and the young people around us. So be really mindful of what you do and how you do what you do, and the choices that you make, because that will have an impact on the people that are surrounding you, particularly younger people, younger adults. I think particularly of my two daughters. I've got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. And it's so important for my husband and I to be really mindful of, how we conduct ourselves, what we say. What you say, your words are powerful. The Bible says, your words have power of life and death. And so, I want to encourage you to choose your words really wisely. Think about what you say. Speak words of life, speak words of encouragement as you aim to stay in peace. It's so easy to speak the doom and the gloom and the negative that's outside there, but I want to encourage you, to be mindful and to speak life in the situations around you. So be kind. In the UK, there's this campaign around sort of being kind. So be kind to yourself, but be kind to the people around you. Just really, make a concerted effort to know who is around you. And I think, and my heart is going out to particularly the vulnerable, particularly the elderly in our communities. I was in the shops on Saturday, and I witnessed a couple of older people with shopping baskets empty because they can't actually buy the food that they need because people have been panic buying. And so I want to encourage you in this day to be kind, to be aware of who the people are around you, and particularly the vulnerable, particularly the elderly, particularly the people who aren't able to get to the shops, and really extend that neighborliness, with the people around you. So, know who you are and have a sense of who you are. Reach out, to the people and do acts of kindness to people around you. Smile, greet people, welcome people, embrace people. Think about what you're saying, choose your words wisely. Think about what you're choosing to eat, and to be mindful of those that are vulnerable, and in your community, in your neighborhoods, and be kind. That is sort of the 5 things that I would leave people with.
Absolutely beautifully stated message that everyone can reflect on and take to heart, hopefully, and reflect outward in their day-to-day lives during this time, but any time of life, really. Those are any time. Principles that are eternal, truly. And I want to thank you so much, Claudine, for coming on here today.
Thank you.
These principles that you have expressed, I think, are going to be so helpful to everyone who hears them. And you have such an incredible journey that you've been through to reach the state of empowerment you're in now. And
thank you.
I want to wish you the best in your own journey, in your own health journey, and with the book and with NutraFist Wellness, the launch of that program with your husband. And once you go check those out, and I hope that you'll come back and join the program another day, and we can get even further into the courageous steps of reaching empowerment that your book covers. We can dive into those even further. But Thank you so much.
That's right, because I actually, for the show, I prepared a couple of readings. So when you invite me next time, we can go through those readings. And I actually, if it's okay with you, if we have time, I just want to share one quote from the book that I think really speaks to the time that we're living in, and it's by Nelson Mandela. And this is one of the first quotes I have in the book. And it says, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears."
Absolutely.
May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Yeah, I thought that I had to share that because that's exactly poignant, for where we find ourselves now, the choices that we make, how we see ourselves and how we see our communities and our world. May the way that we see ourselves and may the way that we see our world, be directed and influenced and empowered by our hopes rather than the things that cause us fear, worry, and anxiety.
Absolutely. Choose faith over fear and
yes,
put your actions into the world at this critical time of history that we're in. Well, let's do this again soon because you've been a wonderful guest, and I want to get into all of this information even deeper. I know that there's a lot more territory that we can cover.
Yes.
And so thank you so much again, Claudine, for coming on the program.
You're very welcome.
And take care.
Thank you so much, Scott, for what you're doing as well. Your poem, I think, you started out with just sums up who you are. And it was so inspiring and so encouraging. So we want to thank you as well for what you're doing and for making these programs available and opportunities for people to share and to really, influence and inspire others. So thank you so much for what you do and who you are and what you stand for.
Oh, I appreciate that, Claudine. And we're going to keep doing it here on Songs of Selah and going to have you back very soon.
Thank you. Let me know. I'll be most welcome.
All right, I'll get in touch with you right after the program, and we'll set something up. And
fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you, Claudine, and listeners out there, thank you for joining the program today. Stay safe, stay healthy. Re-listen to this program and take all of Claudine's advice because I think she covered it so well. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Selah.
Thank you.